Welcome to the Rock and Wellness Podcast, the show that takes you on a voyage to better health, wellness, and happiness that will rock your world. With me, Rachel Joy Olson, your host, your coach, and your biggest fan. Welcome to episode 30 of the Rock and Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Rachel Joy Olson. I am a wellness coach whose biggest passion is to help women stop hating what they see in the mirror, discover their deepest desires, and live an inspired life of their dreams. So sit back and relax as we get into today's topic. In today's podcast, I will share with you a teaching module for my Love Yourself Healthy program. In this module, you will learn what foods make up a whole food diet, how to eat a whole food diet for best health and performance, the science behind the macronutrients and how much of each macronutrient you need for best results, and you'll learn a little bit about the micronutrients and why they are also important to have in your diet. I encourage you to visit the show notes page for this episode at rjowellness.com/podcast/episode-30, where you can take a look at the details of the Love Yourself Healthy program, as well as some links for further learning. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Today, we will focus on the importance of whole food nutrition and the many benefits that eating a diet rich in whole food brings to your health and wellness. So since the beginning of time, our Mother Earth has been providing us with natural healing ingredients, including herbs people have used as medicine for centuries. Since the rise of the pharmaceutical industry, many of these natural methods have been abandoned. The good news is we are again starting to awaken to these ancient methods and starting to realize that all we need to heal ourselves comes from inside ourselves and the food Mother Earth provides, which is whole food nutrition. Now, unfortunately, the standard American diet, which is considered really the Western diet, is plagued with food full of saturated fat, sugar, and salt, which wreak absolute havoc on our internal organs and emotional health. In our grab-and-go society, we have become so accustomed to eating food in pretty little packages, giving little concern to the fact that these processed packaged foods are laden with chemicals and most of the nutritional value is gone. A diet lacking in essential nutrients results in overeating, weight gain, obesity, and other health problems, including heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. The standard American diet, or SAD, causes high levels of acid to build up in the body. Our blood can be measured in terms of acidity or alkalinity, which is also known as the pH balance. A pH that is less than 7 is considered acidic, and a pH higher than 7 is alkaline. A balanced internal environment in our bodies is essential and important for the best health. Now, the ideal pH for the blood is 7.4. Anything below or above this range results in symptoms of disease. Death can occur when our pH is below 6.8 or above 7.8. Really important to have that balance. Now, when you eat foods that are alkaline and nutrient rich, the body will begin to detox and clean out the toxins that have been stored in your tissues for years. This may result sometimes in flu-like symptoms, maybe low energy levels, and perhaps a ride on the emotional roller coaster. However, these symptoms in no time will subside, and in a few days, you will be left feeling refreshed and full of energy. Dieting and exercise without proper nutrition can stress the body. When we exercise really hard without proper detoxification and diet, we tend to maybe lose weight, but all those impurities and toxins are still running around the body and cause stress and strain on the organs. Now, of course, our body is only wanting to protect us. So what does it do? It gets fat to come back into the picture, because fat, basically think of toxins running around your body, and fat cells come around the toxins, absorbing the toxins as a protective mechanism. So if you do have excess fat on your body, it just means your body is protecting you in some way, either protecting you physically because you've got too much toxin in your body,
or even emotionally. A lot of the times, excess fat can stay on our bodies when we have emotional stress and we're trying to protect ourselves in some sort of emotional way. So, really important to release stress and release toxins in the body with a proper diet so the body can get rid of the toxins and release the fat. Now, diets rich in raw alkaline food have been shown to reverse the effects of long term illness. Holistic healthcare professionals suggest that it may take 1 month to cleanse and repair for every year your body was exposed to poisonous foods and other toxins. I was talking about this to a client the other day, saying that even when I started to transition and made the switch to eating more alkaline foods, it's taken many years to get to the place that I am today. So we have to make sure we're not thinking of this as a diet plan that we're on for a short period of time. Eating healthy is really a lifestyle and should be occurring all the time in order to truly see those results. It's not going to be a fast results, but every step you take is going to get you to where you want to go. A lot of people say, well, what is raw food? A lot of people immediately think of raw meat. Now, I'm not talking about raw animal products here. I'm talking about plant. Food is considered raw when it's in its natural earth grown state. Plant food is considered the most healing when consumed raw because it contains enzymes that do help with the digestive process. It also then maintains its vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. When food is cooked at temperatures over about 115 to 118 degrees, these enzymes and nutrients are damaged and sometimes altogether are destroyed, leaving nothing for the body to use for healing energy. So you will find if a person does eat a diet full of just cooked food, their digestion and energy levels will be low. Whereas if you can add some raw food to your diet every day, if not every meal, you will have more energy. Food is considered whole when it has been grown by Mother Earth, not created by humans in a laboratory, and has not been tampered with in any way. The foods that are considered whole that we should be eating every day for optimal health include fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Anything outside of these food groups are foods that should be eaten either on a very rare occasion or never. A diet rich in whole plant based foods has been proven by research to result in the best results for health and wellness. So let's talk a little bit about the science of nutrition. I don't think enough people know science of nutrition. Now, in my opinion, I believe that the science of nutrition should be taught in schools. We should be learning about what these things are good for our body, but unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people out there that don't want us to know the truth. So most people know about macronutrients. So we're going to talk about the difference between macro and micronutrients and why they both play a part. Our macronutrients are protein, carbs, and fats. And there are many different opinions on how much of these macronutrients we need for optimal health. But the key is to find the balance that works best for you and your goals. When we eat a diet that's rich in whole food nutrition, sometimes the traditional recommendations don't always apply. Now, I'm going to be given recommendations based on the American College of Sports Medicine today. What is protein? The body needs protein to build and repair tissues, hormones, and enzymes. Protein rich foods help to sustain energy that is provided by carbohydrates. So we need both. However, the biggest problem is that most people think we need a lot more protein in the diet than we actually do. When people find out that I eat a 100% plant-based diet, one of the first questions they ask is, where do you get your protein? I used to be offended by that question because it seems so silly. I'm thinking, well, anything that has a cell has protein. Don't people know this from biology? But people just don't know this, and that's okay. We're taught by mainstream media so many different things, and unless you're really studying the science of nutrition, we just don't know. So now I love this question because it gives me the chance to educate people on what foods contain protein. Now, think back, as I mentioned, to high school biology. Do you remember learning about plants and how the cells function and what they're made of? It's a very simple concept. As I just recently mentioned, anything with a living cell contains protein, also called amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. So all living foods contain protein. Some people say, well, what about starving kids in the world? Aren't they protein deficient? Yes, they are, because they're starving to death. Anyone who lacks enough calories in the diet is at risk for protein deficiency. But if you eat a well balanced diet that includes fresh living fruits and vegetables, it is very unlikely that you will become protein deficient. If you've ever tried eating a plant based diet and found that your energy levels plummet, a lot of people have said, well, I can't do plant based because my energy levels just drop when I do. Well, it's usually not because you're protein deficient, it's because you haven't eaten enough calories. Remember, when we're eating more easy to digest living foods, they're also lower in calories, especially fat. These move through the digestive system a little quicker than that heavy, dense animal food. So we usually just need to up the amount that we eat. So think about some of the largest mammals in the world, like gorillas, elephants, or hippopotamuses. They are all herbivores and eat nothing but plant foods, yet they're strong, powerful, and seem to have more than enough protein in their diet. According to the dietary reference intake suggestions, the average person requires about zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein. And protein should be about 25% of the total diet. Now, this is going to depend on your personal goals and what resource you're looking from. But this is very easy for the average person to get if they eat a well-balanced diet that is rich in whole real foods. Now, it's also shown that an endurance athlete, somebody that does long distance running, let's say, should probably up it to about 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. And somebody who's working for strength, let's say bodybuilders, up to about 1.7 per kilogram of body weight. Anything over that doesn't really seem to help. It's just a bit of a waste. So some high protein foods include things like edamame, which is your true soybean. That's about 18 grams of protein per cup. Tempeh, which is usually made from fermented soy, is about 16 grams per cup. Tofu, a little bit more processed on that soybean, 8 to 15 grams of protein per cup. Lentils, some of my favorite sources of protein, 18 grams of protein per cup. Any of your beans are on average around 20 grams per cup. And peanuts. Now, I did, to keep it systematic here, I kept it at per cup, just so you can see the difference. Peanuts are 28 grams of protein per cup, although you wouldn't usually eat a cup because they're too high in calories and fat. And then something like wild rice is actually 7 grams per cup. So we can get protein and more protein from plants than we actually think. And most people don't know that the edamame bean or soybean is actually a complete protein source. That means it contains all the amino acids that our body needs to survive. A lot of people think that a complete protein doesn't come from plant foods, but it only comes from animal foods, and that's not true. Complete proteins not only come from soy, but quinoa, buckwheat, and many other whole food plant-based foods as well. So what about carbohydrates? So when people hear this word, they often think about bread, pasta, cereal, which are mostly refined white or whole wheat sources of carbohydrates as well. So they are kind of demonized because of these unhealthy foods. So these foods are refined carbohydrates, usually full of sugar and chemical preservatives, which do harm and break down the body. So we definitely don't want to be eating processed foods that much. Processed foods usually come from some sort of processing of a whole grain, okay? That also comes in the form of sugar, candy, breads, pastas, and pastries. Okay, so lots of different foods in the carbohydrate form that really don't have a place in our diet as far as health goes. Is there anything wrong with eating bread once in a while? Absolutely not. But I suggest if you do eat bread, make sure it's as homemade and fresh as possible, so as natural as possible, and made preferably from sprouted grain ingredients. So your healthy carbohydrates come from pure earth-grown sources that have been processed, such as fruit, starchy vegetables, oats, brown and wild rice, and quinoa. As I mentioned, though, unfortunately, many people shy away from eating things like fruit or oatmeal due to a higher sugar content. Although there is sugar in things like fruit, the body knows exactly how to use it. There's also essential vitamins and minerals we need for optimal health, as well as fiber. So it's true that many of the carbohydrates people eat and crave are processed and will cause weight gain. Okay, so unfortunately, thanks to media, all carbohydrates have been given a bad name, which is really unfortunate. So, this has actually led to most people having low fiber in their diets, which results in a lot of digestive problems such as constipation and colon cancer. Now, according to the dietary reference intake suggestions, an active individual may require up to 6 to 10 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight. And it should be about 45% of the total diet. Of course, that depends on your needs. An average or inactive person might only need about 3 or 4 grams per kilogram of body weight. Certainly think about carbohydrates as the gas in your gas tank. If you're moving your body, let's say you were driving your car, if you were driving your car a long distance or in relation moving your body in a long distance, you would need more gas in the tank. Carbohydrates are that gas. If you're not moving as much, you don't need as much carbohydrates. If you're moving more, you need more. Now, the glycemic index is something that is, it's a value that's assigned to foods based on how slowly or quickly these foods cause an increase in blood glucose levels, also known as a rise in blood sugar. Blood glucose levels above normal are toxic and can, over time, cause blindness, kidney failure, or increased cardiovascular risk. However, foods low on the GI scale tend to release glucose slowly and steady. So we really want to focus on foods that are lower on the GI scale because they tend to help us lose weight, while the foods higher on the GI scale are okay to eat once in a while as long as it's after some sort of activity to help us replenish our glycogen stores. So foods that are high on the glycemic index include things like processed foods, sugar, candy, white bread. Low on the glycemic index, broccoli, coconut, kiwi, eggplant, things like that. So let's switch into fat. So the chemical structure between saturated and unsaturated fat, the two main types of fats are very different. So without being a scientist, you can tell the difference between an unsaturated and saturated fat by noticing its consistency at room temperature. Saturated fats, which include mostly fats from animals, as well as coconut, are solid at room temperature, whereas unsaturated fats are liquid at room temperature. Now, the most well-known saturated fats come from animal products. However, the biggest problem with animal fat is that it does cause atherosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries, clogging and hardening of the arteries, and heart disease. So, to eat sources of saturated fat, which comes from animals, you must kill the bacteria by cooking the food. And once this type of fat is heated at high temperatures, it actually becomes rancid and harmful to the body. And research has proven that it becomes cancerous. The best form of saturated fat from raw coconuts, coconut butter or coconut oil. The difference between the saturated fat in animal products and that of coconut is the chemical structure. According to Dr. Mercola, coconut oil is made up of 2/3 medium chain fatty acids as opposed to the long chain fatty acids and saturated fats from animal products. Some people say that the coconut oil, because of that chemical structure, is a little bit more healthy than the animal saturated fat. And then some people will say it's still a saturated fat, it's still harmful. Kind of depends on what side of the camp that you're on. I mean, if we had to choose, coconut oil is definitely your healthiest saturated fat. But the cool thing about coconut oil contains something called lauric acid. And the body breaks down lauric acid into monolaurin and then uses this compound to destroy viruses such as HIV, herpes, measles, and influenza. Coconut oil has actually been shown to have antiviral and antibacterial properties. Some of the other benefits that have been shown from coconut is that it can and may support immune system, weight loss, heart health, healthy metabolism, source of energy, really good for your skin, supports healthy function of the nervous and endocrine system. So I usually cook with coconut oil because it has a high heat tolerance, whereas the unsaturated fats unfortunately have a low heat tolerance and can turn into hydrogenated or trans fats, which we will talk about very soon. Now, unsaturated fats are broken into two categories, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. And these fats are absolutely healthy for the body, especially heart health. So, foods that contain monounsaturated fats include olive oil, peanuts, peanut oil, sesame oil, avocados, cacao beans, almonds, pecans, cashews, macadamia nuts, and hazelnuts. And polyunsaturated fats are most dominant in walnuts, which are really good for brain function, sunflower, sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, flaxseed, hemp, and tofu. So, really great to have these healthy fats in our diet. However, in saying that, I'm also a believer that whether they're good fats or not, science is actually showing that our bodies tend to do better on a lower fat diet. So, me personally, just based on some of the research that I've read, I have about a 5 to 10% fat in my diet. I've found that just from how I feel a lot better when I have a lower fat diet. However, you could be different. So that's why it's really important to use your own body as a bit of an experiment. Try adding more fats in your diet, see how you feel. If you have more energy and you're ready to go, you'll know that your body can burn that fat very nicely and turn it into energy. But if you're like me and you eat a lot of fat and you find you're sluggish and lethargic, it probably means your body doesn't quite like to use that as an energy source as much. So, carbohydrates are actually the body's preferred source of energy, then fat, and protein used more for recovery and repair as opposed to energy. The body will use protein as energy if it's its last resort. So let's say if you're starving and you don't have enough fat or carbohydrate. So I'd mentioned trans and hydrogenated fats already. These fats are often used in processed foods as a preservative to provide a longer shelf life. Trans fats have been proven to increase your risk of disease and elevate cholesterol and triglycerides. These fats are most commonly found in commercial baked goods, cookies, donuts, muffins, cakes, pizza doughs, snack foods such as crackers, microwave popcorn and chips, vegetable shortening, fried foods like French fries, fried chicken, chicken nuggets, and breaded fish, and candy bars. So, for optimal health, it's really, really best to refrain from eating all foods that contain trans fat. Our body does require fat to provide energy and to build healthy cells, to support brain function, to help with the delivery and use of vitamins, to make hormones, to support healthy skin, and provide the organs with protection. So, how much fat is important? Well, according to dietary reference intake suggestions, an individual may require about zero point 0.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. Think about that for a minute. Look how much lower the recommendations are of fat than protein and carbohydrates. It's quite a bit. Depending on what source you're looking at, the recommendations are anywhere between 5 to 20. I've even seen maybe up to 30%, but again, it kind of depends on what sort of camp you're coming from. And like anything else, test your body and see how it feels on a higher or lower fat diet and see what works best for you. So let's talk now about micronutrients. So micronutrients are often overshadowed by the macronutrients, yet these are the essential nutrients what keep us healthy and alive. Micronutrients include vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. When we eat a diet that lacks essential micronutrients, serious health problems occur. So let's start with minerals. Some essential minerals include calcium, chloride, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and sodium. Some foods that are high in minerals include your nuts and seeds, legumes, dark leafy greens, whole grains, mushrooms, avocados, essentially all your plant-based foods contain minerals because the minerals are actually coming from the earth. And our body is made up of some of these, actually, most of these essential minerals, and we need to get those minerals in our diet as well. Then we've got vitamins. So your vitamins include all your B vitamins, and then your A, C, D, E, and K. So your B vitamins and vitamin C are considered water-soluble vitamins. These are the vitamins that require water in order to dilute into the body and be usable. So these vitamins, if you tend to have too much of them, will just be expelled. But your fat-soluble vitamins, your A, D, E, and K, we have to be a little bit more careful when we're taking those vitamins, as they need fat, but they can also be stored in fat. So let's say we have too much of these vitamins, sometimes it can be stored rather than expelled. So you really want to make sure that if you're going to take vitamin supplements, you are talking to a healthcare professional, preferably a physician or a registered dietitian, to make sure you know exactly what you need for yourself. However, in my opinion, and what I recommend to all my clients, is if you want to supplement and get more vitamins and minerals, you supplement with a whole food supplement. I've got some that I really, really enjoy and really like. So if you want more information on those, please send me an email and ask me, because they're something that I take every day and have years now. Now we'll move on. Some foods that do contain vitamins, again, all your plant-based foods, dark leafy greens, nuts and seeds, broccoli, mushrooms, peppers, avocados, squash. All your plant-based foods contain your essential vitamins and need to be in your diet daily. Antioxidants, these are molecules that prevent the breakdown or oxidation of other molecules in the cell. So oxidative stress is damage to the cell structure and function, and usually is a result of excessive inflammation and exposure to toxins. So think of it this way. Antioxidants are like Pac-Man, who run around gobbling up all the bad free radicals or ghosts from that game that cause oxidative stress, and therefore are essential for health and longevity. Now, the best sources of antioxidants are foods that are rich in color. So your plant foods, your berries like goji berries, blueberries, elderberries, cherries even, dark chocolate, pecans have also been shown to be high in antioxidants. So that's a lot of information. And I know it can seem overwhelming when we start talking about nutrition, especially kind of that high level review of nutrition. There is a lot to know. I mean, people study for years. You know, I was just saying to somebody just the other day when they asked me a nutrition question and asked how long I've been studying nutrition. I've been studying nutrition now for pretty hardcore in the plant-based world for at least 10 years. And then have been studying nutrition before that over 20 years, since even being in the health and fitness industry. And, you know, there is a lot to learn. There's a lot to know. I'm happy to have conversation and discussion on some of the science backing nutrition, what is right, what is not right. So if you have any of those questions, please ask.
I hope you received value from this presentation. I know it's a lot of information. So if you have any questions at all about any of the topics, information, anything I shared in today's podcast, please reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram at R.J.O Wellness. I am always happy to have discussions around this vast topic of nutrition and help you on your journey to better health and wellness. Until next time, my friends, keep rockin' your wellness. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Rockin' Wellness Podcast. Make sure to visit my website at www.rjowellness.com, where you can subscribe to the show and check out all the show notes. While you're at it, if you found value in this podcast, if you'd simply tell a friend about it, that would help out too. You may choose to join the R.J.O Wellness community to take advantage of the freebies, courses, and coaching that will take your voyage to the next level, or support this podcast with your monthly membership. Until next time, my friends, keep rocking your wellness.